5-4, triangle inequality. So we're going to talk about the triangle inequality theorem. This states that the sum of any two sides is greater than the third side. So if I add the lengths A and B together, it's going to be greater than C. And then it's true for all the other combinations. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the example 1 and then to example 2. Example 1 lists a bunch of lengths of different sides of triangles. And we have to see if those combinations would be equal or would make them a triangle. So would they create the triangle? So let's look at these first examples. And you can pause these two if you want to see if you can tell whether or not they're triangles or not. So part A, you've got 6.5, 6.5, and 14.5. So what you would do is you go through and say, alright, if I had 6.5 and 6.5, those two sides, their sum has to be greater than 14.5. So I know 6.5 and 6.5 is 13, so this first one's a no. Then I go to the second one. Alright, well 6.8 plus 7.2 is obviously going to be bigger than 5.1. Then I'm going to take the first and the third. So I'm going to go 6.8 plus 5.1. That is definitely going to be, bigger. So what I just noticed, and something that I want to point out to you guys as well, is that do you see how in part A they go from least to greatest, so the first two are equal to each other, that the smaller two sides needs to be bigger than the third? So if I took 6.5 and 6.5 and I got bigger than 4.5, that would make that a triangle. But because it's less than, then it doesn't make that a triangle. So part B would make, so if I took and ordered them with 5.5, 6, or 5.1, 6.8, and 7.2 and put them in order from least to greatest, that the smaller two lengths they have to add up to more than the third side. So B would be a yes. Part C, 5 and 5 equals 10. My triangle inequality says the sides have to be greater than the third side not used. So in this case, C does not work. It cannot be equal to, so it's a no. Part D, if I take 6 and 7 and add together, I get 13. 13 is greater than 10. So there we go. Here, last example that you guys are going to do is, it has 4 choices. So why don't you take a look at this particular problem, see which measure cannot be PR, and pause it now, and then come back. Alright, you guys should have taken a moment to solve that for yourself. Okay. So looking through this is the way that I would work. I would say, okay, I'm going to try 7. So 7 is less than the 7.2. So 7 and 5.2, that adds up to being greater than 7.2. So that's not going to be one of my choices, because it cannot be the measure of that third side. 9 and 5.2 is definitely bigger than 7.2, but because 9 is that long,